Perfect.
Lovely.
Is that lovely?
Pretty sexy. Baby, don't leave
No, I
me.
won't.
What's good? This is your boy Internal Sadist, and I started early today because I decided to start early because I can. I don't give a fuck. I just did. You don't like it, you can kiss my ass. Let me stop. No, but no, but this one's gonna be about victimhood mentality and the stuff that goes along with it. A lot of the times that a lot of people seem to always forget, or people seem to always do it. Something I've always noticed with victimhood mentality is typically with victimhood mentality, most people who have it typically are a lot of times people are like vying for it in first world countries. Typically in third world countries, typically people are too busy trying to live and or try to avoid being a victim or being a victim of victim being victimized by victim as crime. Now, we don't really think about being victims in third world countries. Whereas in America, it's almost like a race to the top to be a victim for some odd damn reason. Let it be blacks, let it be women, let it be you name it. Basically, for some odd reason, women are at the top of the pecking order, despite the fact that if you actually go back in history and look at shit like that, women typically were most of the damn problems when it came to anything black. Most of the damn problems where black people were either fucking stoned, killed, hung, or lynched, typically came about because of a woman, basically, and particularly most times a white woman. So how white women became the top of the victimhood status blows my mind. That just blows my mind. I don't even understand how that's a thing. Because 9 times out of 10, you were the reason why they became a victim half the damn time. And if they weren't minding their damn business or they weren't doing something stupid, typically you were the person who was a catalyst for them, for them to become a victim of some type of crime or hate crime. That being said, when it comes down to it, a lot of times people in the first world countries always try to fight for victimhood status. If it ain't one group complaining, there's another group complaining about being a victim or being victimized. At the end of the day, it's almost like they try to fight each other to see who's the most victimized group of people in the whole entire world. It doesn't matter who the group is; they just do. And the sad part about that, the more they do it, the more it sounds like a shit show to me for all intents and purposes. Because when it comes down to it, everybody who always cries about being a victim typically aren't really victims. They typically are people who happen to, come in contact with another person that tells them that they're a victim. Think of it like this. It's kind of like feminism. You can have sex with somebody and it'd be perfectly fine. But, a feminist would tell you, well, if you didn't enjoy the sex, it was rape. That's typically when people start becoming victims. When people say stupid shit like that, you'll typically get involved with a group of people, and a group of people will say something like, well, did you enjoy it? Well, if you didn't enjoy it, well, technically it's rape. Well, no, that's not how it works. Or my all-time favorite, well, if, you did something wrong, you feel guilty about it, and the person that you really wanted don't want you anymore, now it's rape. It's like, no, no, you can't go back and change history of fucking you having sexual relations and making it so. The sad part about that is the thing that I have a problem with when people try to be victims when they weren't even victimized, or they try to make normal things, and turn them into turn it into victimhood mentality, basically. Like, case in point, you're walking down the street, somebody tells you look nice today. All of a sudden now you're a fucking victim now. Like, no, it don't work like that. You look nice today, take that fucking compliment and move your punk ass on, basically. I get tired of hearing people say dumb shit like that on a regular basis because people get caught up in a dumb shit for no fucking reason whatsoever, and they don't even need to be. They just complain about this shit, and they want to be seen, and they want people to fucking ride to their fucking rescue and comfort them and hug them and be like, oh yeah, we're so sorry you were a victim. Like, get the fuck out of here. You weren't a victim. Somebody gave you a fucking compliment. Just because you don't like the person, you can't be a fucking victim. It'd be one thing if the person gave you a compliment that you didn't say anything and he called you an ignorant bitch and he slapped the shit out of you. Then you're a victim. But if somebody gives you a compliment and you don't like the person because they're ugly, you're not a fucking victim. It doesn't work like that. And that's the shit that pisses me off. And then you got other people out here pretending to be victims and shit like that, where they're not even victims. They're basically living under the rule of thumb of the fucking, you know, leftist fucking tyrannical government, basically. And all of a sudden now you're victims. They listen to dumb shit like, oh, well, you know, voter ID, asking for voter ID, asking for ID for voters is a racist thing, racist narrative against black people. And black people are like, yeah, that's right, it's racist. Yeah, like, bitch, if you don't shut the fuck up for a second and think about the shit that's coming out of your fucking mouth. Last I checked, when you look at it, and this is the dumb shit that black people get themselves into when they listen to stuff and they want to be victims too. And it's like, well, first off, dumb motherfucker. One, do you have an ID on you? Well, yeah. How are you a fucking victim? Well, the Republicans, they're imposing voter ID laws and we're victims. It's like, no, that's not how that fucking shit works. If you can't think about the fact that you have an ID in your wallet and the next person has an ID in your wallet, how the fuck are you a victim? Most niggas got IDs in their wallet. How the fuck are you a victim? Please explain this to me. Please explain this to me, Tyrone and Lakeisha. How the fuck are you victims if you all have IDs in your fucking wallet? That's the shit that pisses me off. And that's the shit that really blows my mind when I listen to black people co-sign on the dumb shit that fucking liberals say. Like, the Democrats are right. The Republicans are trying to enforce racist things. Like, you have the ID, right? Yeah. Well, how's that racist? Well, because they're Republican. No. How's it fucking racist if you fucking have ID in your fucking wallet? And how are you a fucking victim of any crime when you have a fucking ID in your wallet? Please explain this to me, you dumb fuck. And this is the shit I always say to black people. Like, dude, you can't be a fucking victim. If you have an ID in your fucking wallet, how the fuck is it racism against you? At what point is it racism against you? Because ironically, most people who don't have IDs are pretty much not black people. Most of the people who don't have IDs are either people who came from another country, certain European countries, or people who came from south of the border. The sad part about that is typically the ones who don't have the IDs are typically the illegals. So at the end of the fucking day, it's not really racist. It's basically to keep people who don't deserve to vote or who are not allowed to vote from voting. It's that simple. Voting is a fucking privilege. Why would you allow anybody to walk into a fucking voting poll to just vote? Hell, we might as well reanimate the dead and have them vote too while we're at it, because it just sounds like a great idea. And the sad part about that, every single year voting comes around, there's always dead people voting conveniently. Hell, motherfuckers that died from COVID voted for Joe Biden last year. Think about that shit for a second. Motherfuckers that died from COVID voted for Joe Biden. Imagine they were dead a year before Joe Biden even remotely took office, or, before the election even started, but they all voted for Joe Biden. Let that just sink in for a second. Let that just roll around in your head for a hot minute. Yeah, I thought so. And this is the dumb shit that I'm talking about right here. And when it comes down to it, everybody always wants to play victim until they can't play victim anymore, or until their victim card runs out, or they run up against another group of people who are conveniently rank higher on the victim totem pole, basically. Like, case in point, women want to be victims, all run around here talk about feminism this, feminism that, feminism this, feminism that, and feminism this and feminism that. But when the shit hits the fan, and, certain groups of people start joining their sports, all of a sudden now they're scared to speak up because their victimhood status just stopped. And they got to own their big girl panties now, and they have no more victimhood status, because now that a certain group of people start joining their fucking groups and their sports, now they no longer are victims now, because they rank these people right above them. And what I'm talking about is transgender people. It's funny how women always want to be cry victim until, like, there's a transgender in the room. Then all of a sudden now, they they're not victims anymore, and you know, they got to shut the heck up and, you know, accept the fact that, you know, they pretty much place these people above them. Something I've always found funny when it comes down to you know, the victimhood totem pole. One thing I always notice is that typically black men are the ones that get fucked with the most out of all black people. Black men are fucked with the most out of when it comes to black people. But for some odd reason, black women are more victims than black men. But if you look at any of the fucking statistics on people who get pulled over by the cops and harassed by the cops, they're typically more likely to be black men than they are black women. They're about 2 to 3 times more likely to be black men than they are to be black women. The sad part about that is if you're a black man and you're driving in your car, even if it's not stolen and it's a nice car, you're more likely to catch a DWB than a woman is. I'm just calling it like it is. A woman, she can always explain it away with it being somebody that she slept with or her sugar daddy or anything like that. Whereas men, we don't get that fucking option. We get accused of it being stolen, even if it's ours, to the point where we believe the shit that we're driving in is actually stolen. It's like the fact that it got our name on it. So that means we must have forged our signature on the shit and then stole that person's car, and now we're driving around with it until we actually pay it off. It's like the fact that our name's on the, you know, the payment agreement with the financial institution. Now at this point, when we're getting pulled over by the cops, at some point we believe that we actually stole the car. So we're no longer victims. And the sad part about that is I'm trying to figure out how white women trump black men in the totem pole Olympics, basically. It's something I've always wondered about that. Like, I've never seen a white woman get pulled over and then get victimized by the police officers. Never once. Unless she was doing some dumb shit and she was talking up the side of her fucking mouth. I've never seen a white woman get victimized by the police officers. Like, it happens, but it's one of those things where it's like, it happens so few and far between. What's the words that we use? It's an exception, not the rule, basically. Whereas most men, we're going to be victimized by the police. It's just what it is. Especially if, you know, somebody called on us, especially if a certain group of people who are victims call on us and say that we did something wrong, then the police shows up, then we get victimized by the police officers more than, you know, they do. Case in point, if you're a man and you're married and your wife calls the police on you and tells them that you abused her just so she can get you out the house, just so she can take you to court, just so she can gain control of the house and the accounts and all this shit, so she can drain you dry and take you for a divorce, you know, she's a victim. She ain't received no hits, no licks, no nothing, but she's a victim. Like, let that shit sink in for a second. Women are so victimized, their mentality is so fucked up that anything you do, if they don't like it, they can always go back and change their mind on this shit. Like, case in point, let's just say you're dating a chick, you take her out on a date, you take her out on one date, and, you know, the date goes really, really well in her mind, but there's something about her that you don't like. It just turns you off to the point where you decide you need to ghost her or get rid of her or not want to talk to her after the date. And you decide in the date somewhere that this is your last date with this woman. And that's the neat thing about it. Now, this date is over. You don't call her back anymore because there's something about her that you didn't like or that turns you off, and it just didn't feel right. So you go home, you never call her back, and, you know, let's just say, let's just take it one step further to make it much more plausible or much more reasonable. Let's just say that date goes so good that she wants to take you home and she wants to have sex with you. So you know, let's just say, you know, you drop her off at her house and you decide because, you know, there's something about her that you don't like. You don't want to go up with her. You don't want to lay down with her. You don't want to have sex with her. Now, the sad part about that is you're not calling her back. She can actually go in back and change her mind and say some shit like, well, you harassed her or you sexually assaulted her, sadly, when in fact none of that shit actually happened. Or let's just say you did have sex with her. You didn't talk to her after the fact. She can say that you raped her, basically. But she's a victim. But she can actually call that on you. And the sad part about that is nobody would do any investigating, and everybody would just come in and take your ass to jail as a man. Let that sink in for a second. Let this roll around in your head for a second. She's a victim, but you're about to be victimized by the police because of her emotions. Let that sink in for a second. Let that swirl around in your head for a second. Now you're going to jail. All this shit is happening to you. Everybody believes that you did what you did, what she said you did to her. Ain't nobody on your side. And you're going to jail for this shit. Even if you're found innocent, everybody still believes you did it. And you got to live with that. Then the sad part about that is, even if you're found innocent, you've already been put on the sexual defender, sex offenders list, sadly. And then, Lord knows how long it takes for them to take you off the list, even when you're found innocent. Some motherfuckers are still on the list that were found innocent. Did you know that? Did you know that? Did you know that? Some motherfuckers are still on the list that were found innocent. Some motherfuckers get taken off the list after the fact, and, they're victimized by the system because the system took too long to respond how they want to. It's funny how they respond right away based on somebody else's emotions, but when it comes to due diligence, they take their good old time and drag their feet. But that other person was a victim, while that person that was accused of the shit that's actually being victimized is being drugged by the system, as the system drags their feet and drags this person through the mud by taking her good old time. Let that sink in for a second. Let that swirl around in your head for a hot second. The sad part about that is, I never understood how people become victims who were never actually victims. The sad part about that is, and the sad part about that, we can go one step further. We can say that, you out at the laundromat, you meet a girl, you go back to her place, you have sex, and you never call her back again. She accuses you of rape. The cops are coming to your house to take you to jail. Let that sink in for a second. Let that swirl around in your head for a second. Now you're sitting in jail. She wasn't intoxicated. You both were at the laundromat, and because you didn't call her back in a timely manner or text her in a timely manner, all of a sudden now it's just rape. Let that sink in for a second. Let that swirl around in your head for a second. This is the society we live in. Because the sad part about that is, there are people out there who this shit is actually happening to. There are women out here that are that vindictive that they'll basically do some dumb shit like that. Hell, there are women that are so vindictive that, you got people like Drake putting hot sauce in a condom, who are that desperate. We got women so desperate, the NBA had to make everybody sign a piece of paper or a waiver to tell grown-ass basketball players how to conduct themselves during sexual acts. Like, let that sink in for a second. This is a problem, and women are victims so much that basketball players have to be, because basketball players are being taken advantage so much, they basically had to have a paper signed and things done so so they can protect themselves against women who want their baby batter to make more babies, basically. Let that sink in for a second. Let that swirl around in your head. Now, times that by the fact that most of these crimes are only brought on by overwhelming emotions, because people get emotional and they want to use their emotions as weapons. But they're victims, though. But they use their emotions as weapons. They're victims, though. But they want to use They want to use their emotions. They want to use their emotions as fucking, leverage against people, or as weapons against other people. It's kind of like that one. It's kind of like that one quote in the Bible that, in this case, isn't really true. Like, you know, it says something about man can't form no weapon against me. Unfortunately, women can form all weapons against you. Let it be their tears, let it be lies, let it be their emotions, and they can use it all against you. And now you're a victim of the system, all because somebody wanted to play a victim because they're upset and emotionally fucked up people, basically, or emotionally stunted people. If you think about it from a standpoint, the sad part about that is we get ourselves in so much shit, and then we want people to say that, well, women are grown-ups too, when in fact, when they don't get their way, they're willing to actually emotionally manipulate the whole entire society to get rid of you. It's fun and games when they're getting everything they want, but the minute they don't get what they want, they use it against you. And they manipulate the whole fucking society to make it so. Let that shit sink in for a second. Let that shit swirl around in your head for a hot minute. And that's the cold reality when it comes down to it. We got a bunch of people who want to act like adults up until adulting doesn't benefit them. Now all of a sudden, now they want to be victims. And they use their tears, their emotions, and all this shit against you. In a world that you pretty much built for them to be, for all their creature comforts, now they want to turn around and use it against you in the world that you built for them. Let that shit swirl around in your head. Let that shit sink in for a second. Now, me personally, I can't get down like that, nor can I actually co-sign on the bullshit like that, nor can I see me dating somebody who always wants to play a victim. I don't like victims, men or women. I don't like victims. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't like people with victimhood mentality, men or women. I'm not willing to deal with somebody that has a victimhood mentality. If you're willing to use excuses for yourself making dumb decisions in your life, and you're not willing to take ownership for your dumbass decisions that you make. As I always say, and I've heard many people quote it, but that shit really came from me. A series of bad decisions, that's actually my thing. That's actually my quote. That literally came from me. I invented that shit. It's a whole entire theory. It's not even a theory. It's a whole entire fucking setup so you can actually understand how one person got from where they were to how they are now based on all the series of bad decisions they made. I literally made a video about that a while ago on my old original channel, but it got taken down, so now I got to re-upload that video again explaining the series of bad decisions and how it actually works. The sad part about that is people who make a series of bad decisions, they might start off in a good position, then they end up in a bad position at some point because karma or dumb decisions or stupid shit that they make, stupid decisions that they make to get them into the dumb decisions that they are, and the outcome to those dumb decisions that they make, basically. And the sad part about that, instead of taking ownership for those dumb decisions they make, they blame every single dumb decision on everybody else and everything else around them. Hell, they'll even blame the sun if you let them. That's pretty much how that shit works. But the series of bad decisions, the whole entire thing came from me. And it basically was a video that I did explaining how if you make this decision, this decision, this decision, this decision, this decision, this decision, how you can end up in this position, if you know what I mean. I'm going to re-upload that video one of these days, and so, you know, everybody can understand the whole damn thing. But no, just know that the whole entire series of bad decisions quote and moniker basically came from me. The sad part about that is when it comes down to it, it ends up being one of those things where if you make a series of bad decisions, if you can't take ownership for this shit, you don't need to be around me. If you make a series of bad decisions and it gets you into a mess or a quagmire, then you don't, if you're going to use excuses for you being in that quagmire or excuses for you being in the mess that you are, I can't co-sign on the bullshit when you come to me and act like a victim. Because at the end of the damn day, my famous quote is, there's two motherfuckers in a relationship. You motherfucker and her motherfucker. Both you motherfuckers fucked up to get to this point. Everybody gets blamed to get to this fucking point. Her and you. What I mean by that is you chose that motherfucker to stab you in your back later. That means you must have ignored all the signs. You chose them because you were thinking with your dick. You were thinking with your dick. All you could think of is ass and tits, ass and tits. And this shit got you into this mess right here. Because you were mesmerized by ass and tits. It's just facts. If you can't take ownership for your decision-making process, knowing that you made a dumbass decision based on you wanted to stick your dick in something, or you wanted to know what it felt like to stick your dick in it, you have nobody to blame but your fucking self. Because you were thinking with your dick. And the famous words of that one song, that shit's dumb. It is what it is. The sad part about that is when it comes down to it, if you can't think like a grown-ass adult and you can only think with your dick, where the fuck you think that's going to lead you to? You're not a victim anymore. You're basically giving in to temptation is all it is. And people say, well, it's biological imperative. You're giving in to temptation. You can overcome temptation anytime you want, but the question is, do you want to? The answer is no. It always sounded funny how these same men that talk about, oh man, I was feeling some type of way when, this, that, and the other was happening. Oh, but if an ugly bitch walked past you, it's funny how you control your temptation then. Well, some of y'all are in a dry spell, then that's a whole other fucking story. Y'all really need to get it in gear and control y'all fucking temptations and y'all urges at that point. But I always found it funny how men can say this shit and then be like, ooh, I don't want to mess with that bitch, and then they control their urges when they found the person ugly or repulsive. Funny how that works, right? And that's just it. If you can't control your urges will control you. And if your urges control you, then you're easily manipulated by any woman who looks decently good. That means you can be manipulated by anyone. We talk about this in a red pill quite oftenly. We talk about this in a red pill. Because the sad part about that is women know this. This is why women do the shit that they do. This is why women have their cleavage out. This is why women got, half their thighs showing. This is why women got, things where, certain body parts are showing or, certain things are percolating in the shorts, basically, as they refer to it as camel toe or wherever you fucking want to, refer to it as, basically, or their ass cheeks hanging out, because they know that people like this and they want the fucking attention, despite the fact that they run around here crying that they don't want this attention, but they do. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't do the dumb shit that they do. It's that simple. We all know this shit. It's kind of like, nobody's listening to women. Kind of like, think about it like this: the feminist march. All these women that do this dumb shit, and nobody pays attention to them until they take their shirts off. Does that sound like a smart, intelligent person to you? Does that sound like somebody you need to follow or somebody you really need to listen to if they got to take their shirts off and get naked to basically get attention? Because if you ever notice with all half these marches, let it be the pussy march or the slut walk or any of this shit, if you notice, nobody pays attention to any of this shit unless the motherfuckers is naked. Then all of a sudden now we all paying attention to the shit. You ever notice that? You see how you see how that works? Because at the end of the fucking day, they really ain't got nothing intelligent to say. And even when they do get naked, ain't nobody really paying on their mind but looking at them. You'll see, and the sad part about that is what I've always noticed with these goofy bitches is somebody's always there to take a picture of the naked bitches. Somebody's conveniently always there to take a picture of these naked chicks when they're naked. Somebody's always conveniently there to take this picture. But when all of them are clothed, there's really no pictures of them, and nobody's really paying attention to them, and there's really no coverage of them. But when somebody gets naked, now there's coverage everywhere of these motherfuckers in these marches. Like, think about that for a second. So you mean to tell me that as a woman who is a quote-unquote feminist, you have to get naked and sexualize yourself to get attention. Make that make sense to me? Me, as a person that's a member of the NRA, all I got to do is roll in a group of people that got guns with safeties on them and the orange tips and everything on them, and everybody's paying attention to me. I ain't got to get naked for that shit. Like, think about that. I had to get naked for that shit. All I said was I'm tired of this shit, and I want my rights. But women, they have to get naked so people can pay them attention. Think about that for a second. Sad part about that is a lot of these laws that were passed the same way that a lot of women got into a lot of these movies when Harvey Weinstein was around. A lot of these dumb laws were basically passed by women who are willing to go the distance to get some of these laws passed. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. They're not really victims. Now, if they don't get their way, there's going to be a lot of motherfuckers, senators and governors, that, you know, that's going to catch the same wrath that Mr. Weinstein caught. Sad part about that, you're starting to see a lot of these fucking politicians get caught up in some shit now with the dick pics and the, you know, sexting and shit like that. All this shit, you're starting to see some of this shit come out now, sadly. You've seen it come out before, and you're starting to see it come out now. It's funny how that works, right? But hey, I'm just an internal sadist. I love truth. I love observing people, and I like the social psychology behind all the shit going on. I like to follow the shit, see how the shit goes. Most of the time, I know how shit's going to pan out before it. Hell, I made videos in Death Cypher where I talked about this shit, where a lot of women are going to start losing their rights. I said the abortion thing was going to, I even talked about the abortion thing in the Death Cypher when I said women are going to lose some of their rights. So lose some of their rights. Like, nah. Well, technically, they didn't really lose their rights. It went back to states' rights and not, you know, the federal government enforcing women's rights, which is, you know, kind of sort of fucked up. Because the federal government shouldn't be overstepping their boundary to enforce some shit because some crybaby-ass people can't control their fucking urges. But at the end of the fucking day, I already said a lot of this shit, especially when it came to Roe v. Wade, was going to happen to women. People are like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, Tico. You don't know what you're talking about. Nigga, yes, I do. It's called social science and social psychology. You pretty much follow the trends of the dumb shit that goes on. And it's kind of like looking at a farmer's almanac when it comes to farming. You take a civilization that already existed, that declined and fucked itself over and fell off the face of the earth, and you take it and you match it up against a society that you're in now. If you look at it, you match it up, and you realize that this society is about in the same amount of time that this other society was that fucked itself over. It's that simple. Do you look at the psychology of the people within that society on top of that, and this is how you get the mess that you're in now. It is what it is. People want to call me wrong, but the sad part about that is you're not paying attention to society. You're not paying attention to the decline. Who's like, oh, it's going to end. Well, there's always going to be people that's going to stop it or pump the brakes on some of the shit, sadly. There's still more shit to come. Oh, yeah. Remember, they're still bitching now about this Roe v. Wade thing, and if you notice, your lovely President Biden ain't doing shit for you. If you notice, the lovely House and Senate, who is basically predominantly and mostly, for all intents and purposes, Democrat, ain't doing shit for you. But you think the Democrats got your back. They help you back yourself right into a fucking corner. And now you want to cry about it. Now Joe wants to write these and act like he wants to sign some executive orders to help you out, when in fact it's back to states' rights. It's the states who are deciding if they want to keep on going or not. So if you live in a state where abortion is illegal, just know you can go to another state and cross the border and go to another state to get it done at the end of the fucking day. So yeah, I ain't got no problem with that. If I live in a state that, grants it, it's my dumb fault because it's my taxes that go towards it. Why would I want to live in a state that wants to support stuff financially like that? I personally believe if a woman's going to get an abortion, she got to pay out of pocket for that shit. That's just me. That's just me. If she wants an abortion, she got to pay out of pocket for that shit. It's that simple. And if she wants to accuse somebody of rape, she's better be willing to actually go through the whole entire fucking actual process to actually get the person convicted and not try to smear somebody's name over social media. I believe personally, if you smear somebody's name over social media, you should be liable. You should be sued. It'd be like if you were to sway or manipulate the fucking jewelry. You should be in trouble for that. It should be seen as jewelry tampering, basically. Because at the end of the damn day, if you could do that and have everybody on your side on social media, then you pretty much tampered with the jewelry, and you should be arrested at the end of the fucking day, or you should suffer the fines for tampering with jewelry members, basically. It's that simple. Because I'm getting tired of all these quote unquote fake ass victims getting all this fucking attention and using the system against people because they're in their feelings or they're in their emotions. That's the thing about emotional intelligence. When people talk about it, the people who talk about it are the people who use it against other people. So when you hear somebody talk about emotional intelligence, these are the motherfuckers that manipulate people or get other people to do their bidding. That's what emotional intelligence is. Anybody that can't accept responsibility for their own actions, logically or physically, this is where they use to basically get other people to do their bidding or their dirty work. Case in point, abortions. If a woman does something, she absolves herself of responsibility because in all technicality, in her mind, she's not the one really killing the baby. Somebody else is killing the baby. And in her mind, it's technically not a baby yet, even though it's being ripped out of me. It's the doctor who's ripping it out of me. So it's actually the doctor who's the killer. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like Dr. Kevorkian. He assisted people in suicide. Does that make it right? Depends on how you look at it. If you're looking at it from a legal standpoint, no, it's not right. If you're looking at it from a legal standpoint and the fact that states do it to people on a regular basis, when they assist people in suicide for the death penalty, then you got a bit of a case there. But you also have to take consideration too, Dr. Kevorkian doesn't work for the state, nor does he work for the government. He has his own practice. And the sad part about that is, if he did work for the state, then it'd be legal. But he doesn't work for the state, so it's not legal. Same concept. It's still wrong at the end of the damn day. Even if it sounds right and theoretically cool and reasonable based on the person who wanted the suicide, at the end of the damn day, it's still wrong. That's how life works. And you're right, Ricky Lawson. Yeah, anywhere abortion, adoption, and laws that allow women to drop their children off in safe locations, there shouldn't be any child support. And you're right, there shouldn't be. Yeah. The sad part about that is you would have to change the laws to do that shit. And the sad part about that, as long as a lot of people are benefiting from that shit, who's going to change some laws if everybody's getting a little cheddar or getting their palms greased, basically, throughout society? Who's really going to change some shit like that? Because the sad part about that, you named all those places, but let it be abortion, let it be adoption, let it be dropping your child off at a safe location. Somebody's getting their palms greased in all those fucking locations for that to be a thing. Let a man do some shit like that, he'd be in jail. Let a man drop a child off at a safe location. He'd be in jail for endangering a minor. But if you're a woman, you could do shit like that. Even if the man's the father of the baby and the woman died in the hospital delivering the baby, if he was to do that, he'd be found guilty or he'd be charged with endangering a minor, sadly. But women can do that shit on a regular basis. Let that shit sink in. So the laws are one-sided at the end of the damn day when it comes down to it. Because if the laws were quote-unquote fair, women would be serving the same amount of time for the same crimes that men commit. Women would be serving in the military or signing up for selective draft if that was the case. But they're not. Women want all the privileges, but they don't want none of the consequences that come with those privileges. That's typically how this shit works. Hell, that's next. And it is what it is. It's true. But the sad part about that is as long as there's simps like that, as long as there are people that can be controlled by their urges, like if women could go on strike and say no sex for my husband, and a senator would be like, oh, damn, I can't get no sex. Oh, damn, I got to change these laws. As many as men that can be manipulated by stupid shit like that, we'll never actually have a whole society where we can actually change any of this shit back completely. And sadly, because at the end of the fucking day, when it comes down to it, even Ruth Bader Ginsburg said that Roe v. Wade is legally wrong. She said it herself, in her words, in an interview, and on a court, that it's wrong. It's unconstitutional, was her exact words. But she still passed it, even though it was unconstitutional, because I guess when it comes to women, we're allowed to be a little unconstitutional for some women's rights. You see what I'm saying? The sad part about that is at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, when it comes to money, redistribution, men put into the system mostly, and women take out of the system mostly. Let that just sink in for a second. Let that just roll around in your head for like a fine glass of wine. Men put in mostly, and women take out mostly. Interesting concept, isn't it? But at the end of the day, there's not very much you can do but try to vote out all the people. But the sad part about that is women are majority of the vote. So as long as they're voting and they don't have to worry about selective draft, they're going to vote for the people that's going to quote unquote be for them, when in fact they're really not there for them. Because like I said, despite the fact that Roe v. Wade got stripped away, you don't see anybody in the Democratic side rushing to, aid women in this shit. At all. At all. And the sad part about that is, here's how bad it is. Here's how ass-kissing people are when it comes to women. Insurance companies and employers who provide insurance are adding stipulations in the shit to let women travel to another fucking state to get these abortions done under their medical. Let that sink in for a second. Let that swirl around in your head like a fine glass of wine. True? Very true. That's what happens when you take from the system and you don't know how to manage your money properly. That's going to happen. Did you also know that Women who make six figures are living paycheck to paycheck there, Ricky. Let that shit sink in. Let that shit swirl around in your head for a minute. Women making six figures living paycheck to paycheck. Interesting how that works. I know men that can make 30-something thousand a year, 40-something thousand a year, and got a savings. But women that make hundreds of thousands of dollars are living paycheck to paycheck. Sip that wine. Yeah. I remember that, Corey. She wanted to roll the age of consent back down to 12. I remember that shit. But everybody want to see her as a hero. And it's funny what people are willing to remember of a person and willing to forget about a person in a heartbeat. Kind of like our current president and his discretions of touching young people and people inappropriately. It's funny how that works. Yeah. That's what happens when 70 to 80% of your consumer base is of a certain sex. It is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it, but hopefully, for the breasts are. And the sad part about that, you got this young man, this goofball, talking about loan forgiveness. Now I don't know if he's forgiving 100% of the loans, but I know they're forgiving a certain amount of the loans. Certain they're forgiving a certain amount, basically, but I don't think they're forgiving the 100%. But the sad part about that, even that still is bad. Once you think about it. Yeah. But you know all those people that went to school for, underwater basket weaving, they paid way more than $10,000. Paid way more than $10,000 to go to school. Or the people who got the gender studies degrees, they paid more than that to go to school. The people who got the fucking something social something degrees, or liberal arts degrees, all will pay more money than that to go to school. So what's $10,000 really going to do besides pump up how much more we got to pay out in taxes? Sadly, you're just transferring one thing to another thing. And the sad part about that is, like you just said, men pay into the system, women take out of the system. So that $10,000 that everybody's going to get forgiven, whatever's remaining of middle class, and whatever's remaining of the fucking men who still work are going to have to pay for it. That's typically how that shit works. At the end of the damn day, the men are still going to have to pay for the shit. Women are going to pay too, but especially the ones that make all this fucking money, they got to pay too. But the sad part about that is they'll be able to still take out of the system, whereas men will never be allowed to take out of the system. Or, we got to have stipulations before we can take out of the system, whereas women can have it's pretty much open season for women to take out of the system. We just got to keep paying into it like good little pay pigs, basically. Always viewed the government like I view the government, and paying taxes like I view men who watch Twitch thoughts or pay for OnlyFans. We're basically nothing more than pay pigs. So we can allow this shit to keep on happening. We can't get our street fixed, can't get this bridge fixed, but we can pay for some stupid ass shit for women, while the infrastructure collapses around us because women are more important. So if a bunch of women drive across that bridge and it collapses tomorrow and they all die, were they really that important? Or if a bunch of women are driving down the road and they're at a light and a sinkhole happens, were they really that important? Think about that for a second. if your government can allow your infrastructure to crumble around you and you to die or you to be injured, are you really that important? This is Internal Sadist, and this has been another slippery slope. Y'all have a blessed day and be good to yourselves and treat yourselves like milk and do nothing but spoil yourselves. And always be a better version of yourself and always improve upon yourself to make yourself a better version of yourself. It don't matter who you are. Give a damn if you're a transgender, Apache helicopter, man, woman, child, fucking bird, transgender, whoever the fuck you are, gay, straight, whatever. Just always improve upon yourself and make yourself a better version of yourself at the end of the damn day. That's all I care about. Make yourself a better version of yourself. Y'all be good and see y'all next time for the next slippery slope.